All right, continuing with discussion of development in adulthood. In this video, I'm gonna kind of squeeze in a variety of topics. One of the things I want to start with is the importance of considering socioeconomic status. If you remember from previous videos, if you have seen my previous videos, earlier on when I was starting the developmental psychology videos, I defined socioeconomic status, and this has to do with income, wealth, education, occupational prestige, neighborhood quality, and these all come together to give you this socioeconomic status, this SES. One thing we're learning in research is that in many areas of development, you got to acknowledge socioeconomic status. You can't just ignore it and assume that it doesn't lead to different effects or different strengths of effects or relationships. And including when we look at health in adulthood, changes in health with aging as you go through adulthood are very much dependent, or they at least seem to be, based on the available data on your socioeconomic status. So first of all, different nations have different resources, different wealth and access to medical care and schools and things like that we can't disregard. And within a particular country, like within the United States, people differ in their socioeconomic status, and this leads to different life experiences and life outcomes. Well-educated, financially secure adults live longer in general. I am not going to give you more specific statistics than that, even though my textbook does have some more specifics. But I just want you to be aware that SES makes a difference. There is a definite advantage in terms of just being the higher SES. People kind of forget that people don't all have the same experiences growing up, the same access to healthcare, the same education, the same finances to be able to afford things like expensive produce at the store. Healthy foods are expensive. Having access to parks for easy exercise, or access to gyms, those cost money. Going to the park is free, but many people live in an area where there is no park nearby. This is just a sampling of some of the things that can be relevant. And so SES matters for health. Now, another thing that I'm going to talk about in this particular video, and excuse me, I've got a hair that just wandered onto my face and it's bothering me. All right. Intelligence. We used to have this idea that perhaps you lost intellectual ability as you got older, as you went through adulthood. And now we know that that is not true. And in fact, in areas where you have to use your skills, that we definitely don't see losses, we can actually see gains. It kind of depends on what is needed for your job, what is needed for your daily functioning in terms of the differences that we can see. And we also see that some people will develop expertise, or they will become an expert. An expert is someone with specialized skills and knowledge developed around a particular activity or area of specific interest. A lot of times when we think of expert, we think of like a scientific expert or something academic in nature, but you could be an expert auto mechanic. You can be an expert welder. You can be an expert in any field. You could be an expert home baker. If that's your thing and that's what you've been working on, it doesn't have to be something that you've been doing for pay. And it doesn't have to be academic in nature. Another term that I'd like you to know about is selective optimization with compensation. And this is an idea we get from the Baltuses, Paul and Margaret Baltus, who they study adult development, or they have conducted some very influential research on adult development and looking at things like thinking and cognition in adulthood. And one of the things they talked about is this selective optimization with compensation. And this is this idea that you do start changing you start changing, you start having changes in your abilities and your skills based on things like practice and change in your body, change in your brain. And so people try to maintain a balance. They try to maintain a balance by looking for the best way to compensate for physical and cognitive losses and to become more proficient in activities that they can already do well. So basically you work with what you got, all right? So maybe your vision is getting worse, like mine definitely is. Maybe you know that physically you can't do as much as you once did. Depending on the person, you're going to be more impacted or more noticing of different losses perhaps, but the idea is the things that you can do well, you kind of capitalize on those. You make sure that you can make sure that you keep working on those skills. So, really optimal adulthood functioning can involve focusing on the skills that you still have and continuing to work on advancements, improvements in those areas, and not just staying comfortable and staying at the skill level, but continuing to learn, continuing to improve, continuing to work on your hobbies and other activities that you're good at. All right, so we can engage in this selective optimization. Now, all right, so those are just some things that I'd like you to know about adulthood. And some health and cognitive changes. Now again, as I've warned in previous videos, I'm creating these videos for a lifespan developmental psychology course. Since I have to cram a bunch into one semester, by the very nature of how things are set up, I am going to have to skip some things. So I didn't go over everything I could have, and I didn't even go into as much detail as I could have. So if you are interested in learning, excuse me, if you're interested in learning more, there's plenty out there. And for my students at my university, there is a class, Psychology of Adolescence and Adulthood, that does go into more detail about many of these topics.